You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Federal judge dropkicks Trump DOJ's subpoena of Georgia election workers based on an article by Adam Lynch. The state is still digging for Trump's lie, a subpoena in service of a hoax. CNN reports that a federal judge blocked a grand jury subpoena seeking information about 2020 election workers in Georgia, calling the demand for Fulton County records far too broad and rejecting it as unjustified given the statute of limitations. That is the core fact. Everything else is fallout from a political system that keeps subsidizing Trump's fantasy by treating it like an unfinished legal puzzle instead of what it was, an organized attempt to delegitimize a lawful election. With power here, the institution with power was the Justice Department, which chose to pursue this line of inquiry. The people with the least power were the Fulton County election workers whose information was being pulled into a federal process long after Trump's claims had already done their work in public life. And the political force still shaping the landscape is Trump himself, whose Georgia rigging narrative turned a local election administration issue into a national weapon. That is the actual hierarchy, not confusion, not concerns. Power moved downward from federal prosecutors into the lives of local workers, while the original source of the damage remained politically central. The judge blocked the overreach, not the truth. Judge William Ray called the subpoenas breath-staggering and said the government did not show a need strong enough to justify the burden of disclosure. That matters. It is a rebuke to prosecutorial overreach, not an exoneration of Trump's political machine. The problem is not that a judge obstructed justice. The problem is that the justice system keeps circling an election conspiracy that was already used to poison public trust. The legal system has to work with deadlines and evidence. Politics does not. Trump's lie already did its job in 2020 and still does its job now, keeping the narrative alive, forcing institutions to waste time litigating the debris. Martyr outrage is misdirection. The martyr response in the story is predictably loud and strategically dishonest. The judges call the rogue above the law or worse, while the subpoena itself is treated as if it were a righteous search for buried truth. That is the inversion at the heart of the right's politics. Their complaint is never that officials are abusing power against ordinary workers. Their complaint is that power is being denied to their preferred narrative. The real scandal, from their perspective, is not misconduct, it is friction. A court saying no is framed as tyranny, because authoritarian politics depends on administrative submission. Georgia workers became the target. A source makes clear that Trump's election rigging claims repeatedly targeted Georgia, and this subpoena reaches into Fulton County election workers specifically. That is not incidental. When a political movement cannot prove fraud, it keeps the machinery of suspicion running by harassing the people who actually counted votes. The workers become stand-ins for the refusal of reality to cooperate. This is how democratic labor gets punished in an authoritarian ecosystem. Of the people maintaining the election are made to absorb the accusations generated by the people trying to sabotage it. The consequence is not just stress or legal burden, it is deterrence. If enough workers are dragged into enough investigations, the message is simple: do your job and become the target. The larger pattern: this story is not about a single subpoena. It is about the long tail of Trumpism inside institutions that still struggle to decide whether they are defending democracy or endlessly processing its attempted murder. The judge's ruling matters because it draws a line. The deeper problem is that the political system keeps creating openings for the same lie to be relitigated as if repetition were evidence. That is the pattern. Authoritarian propaganda creates the wound. Then institutions spend years arguing over the paperwork around it. Meanwhile, the people who did the ordinary democratic work of running an election are left to fend off the consequences. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article, with the automated voice of Norman. Thanks for listening.